Hi guys, welcome back to the Curly Reader. Today I want to talk to you about all of the books that I read during the month of September. So during the month of September, I read 9 books, which doesn't seem too bad. 2 of those were graphic novels, and the 2 graphic novels were the only 2 physical books that I read this month. The rest were audiobooks. So it is what it is. I also read 1 middle grade, 1 young adult, and then the rest were adult books. So that's decent in my perspective. Um, and then out of all of the 9 books, 4 were 4-star books. So quality wise, it was a much better reading month than what I've had previous. So I think that was good. As far as content goes, I wasn't able to get through as many physical books as I would like to in the month. But like I said, it is what it is. I'm a busy mom. I have a lot going on during the day, and that's why I listen to a lot of my books, because I'm able to listen to things while I'm doing housework and running my kids around and all of that. So it is what it is. As I'm going through all of these books, I'm going to go through them in the order that I rated them. So I'm going to start with my lowest rated and work my way up to my favorite book of the month. So let's go ahead and get started. The lowest rated book that I read this month was The Lost World by Michael Crichton. This is the sequel to Jurassic Park. I buddy read this with Kelly from Cozy Reader Kelly, and neither one of us really liked it. This book was not good. So Jurassic Park, I thought was fantastic. I thought that the science was believable, although it's not accurate and true. It was believable. The premise was believable. The way that the characters were reacting was believable. This was completely opposite of that. The science was completely unbelievable. The whole premise was completely unbelievable. One of the characters that dies in the previous novel comes back to life miraculously in this, and then goes and chases dinosaurs again. I didn't get it. Like, this whole book, I'm like, this makes no sense. Why would he do this? Why would they do that? Why would she go and do that? Nobody would make these decisions. Nobody would react this way. The science made no sense at all. I feel like the first book, the science was relatable. So even if you didn't know that, you don't have a science background, you aren't up in your biology of the 90s, mind you, you could still understand what they were talking about. This one was like way off in left field. Unless you have a degree in science, you're not going to understand what they're talking about. So yeah, I didn't like this one at all. And then I watched the movie, and the movie sucked too. So there's that. 2 stars. The next one on my list is the book that I read with my daughters for our mother-daughter book club. I did a whole video about this, and I will link that down below, but that is Into the Wild. It is a Warrior Cat story by Aaron Hunter, and it is the first book that is in this series, and we all really enjoyed it. I gave it 3 stars. I thought it was great. I think in the video I did with my kids, I said that I rated it 4 stars. I have since docked a star just because I don't think it was necessarily as good as a 4-star read, and upon further reflection, my rating reflects that. If you don't notice, or if you haven't noticed, sometimes I do that. I change my ratings on things, and even up to a year later, if it's something that I rated 3 stars or 4 stars, and it's something that's just really hard hitting, and I'm still really thinking about it, and I really have loved it and love talking about it with people, I'll go back in and I'll bump it up a star. Or if it's something that I rated it high at the time, and then upon further reflection, I'm like, that really just wasn't as good as when I first got done I just thought it was. I'll go in and I'll dock it a star in Goodreads. And so this is one of those cases where I did end up bumping it down to a 3-star read. But we really enjoyed it. It's about a group of feral cats that live in the woods behind a farm, and they are broken up into clans, and the clans are starting to kind of combat each other. But yeah, I will link the whole video that me and my girls discussed this in down below. So that was a 3-star read. The next one that I read is Raising Grateful Kids in an Entitled World by Kristen Welch. This is a nonfiction parenting book about trying to raise grateful kids in an entitled world. I thought this was okay. Most of it was just good reminders. It's nothing groundbreaking. It's nothing I didn't already know. I was really hoping to get some more practical tips on how I could do things with my kids on a day-to-day basis that is really going to make an impact. And I think most of this I already knew and I already do. And I still feel like my kids are ungrateful a lot of the time. And so it's something that we've really been struggling with recently in our family. And yeah, it's just a fact of life here in America, I think, for most parents of children. So, parents of children. I guess if you're a parent, you have children. Whatever. You know what I mean. The next one that I read was one that I listened to at the very beginning of the month when my kids started school, and that is You've Been Volunteered by Lori Gelman. I read Class Mom by the same author earlier this year and loved it. And this is kind of a continuation of that book. I don't necessarily think you have to read the first one to read this one, but it gives you a little bit of a background into the characters' lives. But this is about a mom who has 2 older daughters who are in college, graduating college, and then a boy who is in elementary school. And so she's very much the seasoned mom. She's older than a lot of the other parents. And this year she is back to being class mom again. And she is also taking over for the safety patrol, like crossing guards, monitoring them and making sure that everybody is doing their job and showing up on time and that sort of thing. So it's just kind of her story. It's very funny. I found this one was a lot more anecdotal than the other one was. The other one like had a plot and like the plot moved the whole time. This one was more like, oh yeah, this happened. Let me tell you about when this happened years ago and that sort of thing. It was still hilarious and definitely what I needed for a back to school read. As a mom, I laughed out loud the first few chapters multiple times because it's just one of those books. But I really enjoyed it. But like I said, it just wasn't as good as the other one. And so this one got 3 stars. The next one that I rated 3 stars was Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. This one, I read The Honeymooners last month, and I think I forgot to include it in my wrap-up. So I'll talk about it really quick here. On Honeymooners, I rated 5 stars. I loved it. I thought that book was fantastic. I'm not a huge romance reader, but I thought that book was fantastic. This one was okay. The end, I loved. It got me teary. My heart just broke into a million pieces. But this is about our main character, Macy, and her mom dies when she's very young, and her dad buy a vacation house, and the next door neighbor in their vacation house is Elliot, and her and him become best friends, and then things kind of progress from there when they're kids. And then 11 years later, she runs into him again, and they haven't seen each other in 11 years, and you don't know what happened or why they quit talking and what kind of broke them apart. But they run into each other and things kind of reignite, and you kind of get to find out what happened 11 years ago and the ups and downs in their relationship. I loved how close they were and how honest they were with each other. That was something I really admired in this book. But the overall story was just okay for me. There were parts of it that I really loved, but it ended up being 3-star read. I really, really loved On Honeymooners though. So if you're looking for a good one to read, I would definitely recommend that one. So that was a 3-star. And then we're moving on to my 4-star reads. The first ones that I want to mention, I did read Saga volumes 2 and 3 this month. These were my 2 graphic novels that I read. Rated them both 4 stars. I won't go into a whole lot about what these are about because they are sequels, but the whole Saga series is basically, it's a sci-fi about these 2 warring alien races, and a girl from one and a boy from the other end up getting together and having a baby, which is a huge no-no. And so both of their governments are after them and chasing them through space, and they're trying to protect their daughter. So they're fantastic. Very adult, very, very adult, but the storyline in and of itself is very well done. And yeah, I'm looking forward to continuing in this series here in the next coming months. All right. After that, I finally finished up my books that I have been reading that have been on my TBR the longest with The Book Thief. This is one that I had been meaning to read all summer and had never gotten around to, and finally was able to finish this one and knock it off the list and get that project wrapped up. I will link my wrap up to that project down below, where I go into more of my thoughts about this, but long story short, I gave this 4 stars. It was very good. I really, really enjoyed it, and I'm very, very glad that I read it. So, yeah, but like I said, linked below all of my in-depth details about that and all of the other books that I read as part of that project. Then I read Beartown. I buddy read this with Sarah from Sarah's Nightstand, and whoo, this packed a punch. You can tell. These are all of the things that I never want to forget about this book. This book was so impactful. As a mother, especially of daughters, I feel like this is a book that every mother should read. It was not enjoyable, but it was thought-provoking and it was important, and I am so glad that I read it. The premise of this book is that this little town in Sweden, out in the woods, is a hockey town, and hockey is very important to this town. Their team is finally getting good again after many years of not really being that great, and with that success comes the potential for growth within the community. Jobs could be coming to the community. The city or state or whatever they're in may decide to put a hockey focused school in their town if their team can win the championship. That's going to bring commerce to their town, and everybody is very, very involved in this. And yeah, so the premise then kind of takes off when the star player of the hockey team rapes the GM's daughter. The hockey player is 17, the GM's daughter is 15. So there's that. And the thing that I loved about this book is that it's told in third person, and you're in everybody's head. You're getting the perspective of both of the kids that were involved, all of the parents that were involved, their best friends, their coaches, their teammates, their the bar owner in town, random other hockey parents. You're getting everybody's perspective on how they are feeling about this, where their mindset is, how they approach different things. It was so good just for that alone, to be able to get everybody's perspectives. This is something I think that is plaguing, or has been plaguing, sports, and just not even sports, but celebrities and anybody that society has deemed important. This happens to, where they do something wrong and everybody wants to brush it under the rug and pretend like, oh, well, the person who's making the complaint is just jealous or just trying to ruin their career. And sometimes that does happen, but a lot of times it doesn't. And how are we approaching that? How are we treating these young women that this is happening to, or young men in some cases too? It was so good. There's so many quotes in here that I will be coming back to time and time and time again. And yeah, it was 5 stars, definitely, in my top contenders for favorites of the year. And I am so glad that I read this. This is one that I stayed up talking with my husband about because it just hit me in all the places. I'm so glad I read it now so that my mind is open and I am aware of some of the things that my kids may be facing and how important it is to open the lines of communication with them, and so that they have the right attitude, how to better equip them to avoid certain circumstances or certain situations. And yeah, high praise. If you haven't read this, please go read it. It is a little bit slow getting started, I will say that. So I am from Minnesota. I get hockey fever. Like, I understand hockey's important, but the first, I would say, fifth maybe of this book at least, maybe even more than that, is a lot of just setting up why everybody has a stake in the game and why hockey's important to them. And after a while I was like, okay, I get it, you know. But once the story got stuck going, I was wholly invested, couldn't put it down, loved it. Go read this one. So those are all the books I read in September. I hope that this wasn't too chaotic for you to follow. I know my brain's kind of in every direction right now, so it's hard to form coherent thoughts, but I wanted to get this done. So yeah, what was your favorite book that you read during September? I would love to hear that in the comments down below. Other than that, I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that you have a fantastic October reading month. And other than that, I hope that you stick around and subscribe. And until next time, see ya!